Greetings everybody and welcome along to the 2025 Formula Regional Middle East Championships certified by FIA. The season opener here at the Yas Marina circuit in the nation's capital in the United Arab Emirates of Abu Dhabi. Great to be with you once again. James Sanson here to talk you through qualifying 1 and qualifying 2 of this first weekend of 5 in the 2025 campaign, and it's going to be a very unpredictable season, it has to be said. There's a lot of top talent here on the starting grid in Formula Regional Middle East. It'll be very tough indeed to pick a champion. There's a lot of great quality racers that have travelled out to the Middle East here to get their 2025 campaigns underway. Don't forget, a lot of these drivers are in their final preparations for the likes of Formula Regional in Europe and in the FIA Formula 3 Championship in a couple of cases as well. So this is going to be a very intriguing season. To talk you through the runners and riders, we'll talk about the team that won the title last year, Race GP, with the Finnish driver Tuukka Tarpanen, who is going to be in Formula 3 this year, the Finnish driver. But the drivers that will try to emulate him in the same team are the Frenchman, Enzo Deligny, Jin Nakamura of Japan, Akshay Bora, the Indian rookie, and also in the team, the man who won the Macau Grand Prix a couple of months ago, Yuga Mugenchukwu, the American driver, as part of the McLaren Young Driver Program. For me, he has got to be one of the season favourites coming into this one. Definitely will be interesting to see if he can convert his Macau Grand Prix success into a Middle East Championship title. Over at Santalot Racing, they've got 3 very strong drivers in the lineup. The Frenchman Théophile Nail, who of course is going to be heading Grand Prix woods very shortly indeed. Lorenzo Castillo, the Mexican rookie, alongside him in the number 10 car. We also have the Ukrainian Yaroslav Vezalaho, who's going to be in the squad. Evans GP have a very decent lineup of 2 drivers. The Australian Aaron Cameron, who's been knocking on the door of the top 10 all week. And then Kai Darianani, the British rookie, who discovered that he could go very quickly on racing cars in iRacing of all places. In fact, he was actually the man who managed to beat Dan Wells, very talented single-seater and sports car driver in an iRacing event. Dan Wells decided, hang on a minute, this guy might be worth having a look at, and he certainly has been. Over at Mumbai Falcons, with plenty of success over the years, the team that gave all sorts of success in the past, including to the current new Formula 1 rookie on the grid, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Well, the Mumbai Falcons have got a great team this year, and definitely a few race victories coming their way for sure. Reza Siwathan, the British driver, who's running number 8, he is one of the rookies in the team, alongside another fellow rookie, Rashid Al-Lahiri. He's in the Mumbai Falcons team, but the car looks nothing like it. He's currently racing in the colours of Yas Heat Racing, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm fairly sure he is the first driver ever to run the Yas Heat colours on a Formula Regional. I don't think it's ever happened before. Formula Regional cars, certainly plenty of Formula 4 cars over the years, but I don't think he was actually particularly strong. I don't think the colours have ever appeared on a Formula Regional car before. The other 2 men in the Mumbai Falcons team, of course, the British driver, Freddie Slater, who won both the F4 UAE Championship last year, and the F4 Italian Championship, and an absolute canter a year after winning the Ginetta Junior Championship, of course, in Great Britain. So definitely a magic star of the future for Great Britain. And of course, the other man in the team is the Australian, another rookie, Jack Beaton, who was the second in command in Italian F4. Did a fantastic job. It'll be really exciting to see how it continues. It'll be a really interesting situation for the contenders as they continue to run in close proximity. So it'll be interesting to see how it all continues as the drivers run very close together. So we'll see how they fare. The PHM Racing team are back again in the paddock. We've got Everett Stack, the American, who has upgraded to Formula Regional after an F4 run last year. Another man who's definitely going to be a contender for the championship this year, the Italian Brando Badua, who of course comes from a racing family. His father was instrumental in a lot of the Scuderia Ferrari success as the permanent test driver during Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello's campaign. And Luca Badua himself was a very talented racing driver in Formula 1 during the 1990s. One of the most underrated drivers of that decade, in my opinion. Aditya Kulkarni for the Axel GP and PHM racing outfit that also has the Indian driver Jaden Padiat for ART Grand Prix, who makes their first appearance in the Middle East in Formula Regional. That'll be fantastic to see. They've got 2 very talented Japanese drivers behind the wheel. Kanato Lee, who was here last year, of course, and stepping up is Taito Kato, who battled for the French F4 crown last year and certainly did a fantastic job. And then the man who is alongside him in the team is the Frenchman Evan Schilter, who has been one of the most talented Frenchmen to step out of karting into cars. He won pretty much everything there was to win in French and European karting at one stage, and now he is doing a fantastic job in cars as well. Expect him to put up a title attack. ART and Evan Schilter, Gigi, is definitely going to have a strong season. That is very exciting indeed. Then we're going to have a strong run from the Reginol Motorsport team this year, formerly known as R&B Racing. Reginol Motorsport, the Chinese rap team. Once again, they welcome back Wang Shuwei, who was here last year, but they've managed to get a very talented racing driver alongside them. The Chinese driver in the mix as well is actually the very talented Liu Chi, who did a fantastic job in practice yesterday. In second practice, he was actually the fastest driver of anybody. So anyone having any more giggles about R&B racing being towards the back as they have been in previous years, well, perhaps not this year. The fastest man in practice yesterday, Liu Chi. So it could be really interesting to see how it goes. There's more great contenders at Pinnacle Motorsport this year. Jesse Calixado, who was a race winner last year, now moves over to Pinnacle Motorsport, alongside the Red Bull youngster from Mexico, Ernesto Rivera, who is a rookie in Formula Regional. He was a race winner in Spanish F4 last year. And the other man in the team is Finley Green, who returns, having had a 5-year sabbatical before last year's campaign. He had a year that was plagued with all sorts of difficulties. There is Finley Green. No, sorry, that is his teammate, Giovanni Mascio, in the other Pinnacle. I do apologise. But Finley Green, who is in the number 69 car, the British driver, was in and out of hospital almost more than he was in and out of the pits last year. He had all sorts of health issues. Hopefully, 2025 is going to be a completely different story. So that is your entire field for the first round of the championship. 26 competitors in Formula Regional. And as the contenders get themselves into a good position and find themselves in around the course, we have 12 rookies in the championship this weekend. Once again, if they are in blue, they are championship drivers who have experience. If they are in yellow, and for the numbers, they are the rookies. So it's going to be a really exciting competitor as the drivers continue on their way forward. And at the top of the times at the moment, it is the rookie driver Lorenzo Castillo, who's done a 1 minute 50.892. But everybody's still trying to get those tyres up to temperature. We're a long way from pace at the moment. The practice times this morning, Freddie Slater was the fastest. He did a 1:49.70 in front of Evan Schilter, who did a 1:49.72. Ernesto Rivera got a third place in front of the Japanese driver Jin Nakamura. Keep an eye on Nakamura. Very highly rated indeed. He is part of the Toyota Gazoo racing program, so definitely a contender. If the rumours are true that Toyota are going to have a heavier involvement in Formula One in the future, then Jin Nakamura is definitely a driver they want to keep an eye on. So it'll be really interesting to see how it continues on for them. We're going to see a lot of good drivers up in the top 10. Up to 4th position comes Aaron Cameron, the man who rightly pointed out by Sam Greenhow on YouTube, raced in the Bathurst 1000 last year. So great to see someone of that calibre competing in Formula Regional in the Middle East Championship. So it'll be really exciting to see how it continues. So it's going to be a fascinating charge down the straight then for one of the Mumbai Falcon drivers, still putting on a good showing. There is the Pinnacle Motorsport team down in the pit wall. All sorts of great engineers down there. The Stuart, Piero, Miguel and the whole team working very hard indeed. Pinnacle Motorsport very much working hard with these drivers to try and make some gains. Evan Schilter does a 1:49.62, and that is quicker than the practice pole set by Freddie Slater this morning. So Evan Schilter and Freddie Slater already knocking on the door of faster times. Gigi has gone quicker than anybody. The number 95 for ART Grand Prix. The Frenchman is now the fastest man in Abu Dhabi in a Formula Regional. So Evan Schilter, 1:49.621. It is the best lap we've seen all weekend so far. And Evan Schilter definitely now in provisional pole position ahead of Slater, Calixado, Reginol the Hairy on home soil, first time in a Formula Regional in competition, and then Taito Kato, the French F4 champion, in 5th position, ahead of the likes of Badua, Ugachukwu, Liu, and Aaron Cameron. So keep an eye on Taito Kato, the Japanese driver, very strong indeed up in the top 5 already with a 1:50.08. I'm very sure that's a lot quicker than he went this morning. Well, it's a 10th of a second quicker, so he's certainly finding the gains.
Indeed, he is there. Taito Kato 150.0 that time around. Evan Giltaire as well, who comes to Yas Marina this weekend to battle in the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship for 2025. Of course, a 6-round season. I correct myself once more. 6-round season, a big season as well for the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship here. Evan Giltaire, though, sits at the top. He's done 149.6 of Rashid Al Daheri, who also comes from the Formula Regional European Championship presented by Alpine. And Freddie Slater, who's also in that, who's leading the championship, 149.9. Brando Badur in P4, 149.9. And Casado in position 5 as well, 149.970. Uguchikwu as well in position 7. Rashid Al Daheri has just popped up. Sorry, that is Badua. He's just popped up into 4th. He's done 149.9 to go. Position 4. How the Middle Eastern Championship qualifying sessions work. Qualifying 1 will be determined off for race number 1. And qualifying 2 determined for race number 2 and race number 3 for the weekend. But 1 race a day for the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship. I'm so used to saying the Formula Regional European Championship, but of course not the European Championship that we're racing at here this weekend for 2025. But this season should be quite good indeed. Of course, next week we return racing back here at Yas Marina. Doubleheader in Yas Marina. And then, of course, we go back racing. And I'm actually not sure what round number 3 is for this championship, but I guess we will wait and find out. Evan Giltaire, though, sits at the top. He's done a 149.6, minute and a half to go. There, the timing line for all these drivers to set their lap times. You can just see how tightly bunched this field is. It is less than 8 tenths separating Giltaire and then down to Castello in position 18. And of course, Colgrani, who has been racing in the Italian F4 Championship. Of course, that wrapped up last weekend over at Mugello for a 5-race championship, which was, as a minute to go left in this one. Here, the final corner on what is the Formula 1 layout. Here, this is the final corner on the Formula 1 layout. And of course, the timing line, the starting line, more or less, runs the other side of the circuit. So this one doesn't mean anything to these drivers, this timing line. There's a lot of timing lines around this circuit. And certainly does make it a little bit more confusing with 30 seconds to go. Evan Giltaire set that lap time quite early on in the session at 149.6. It's sort of been like that for most of this qualifying session. These Pirellis seem to only have 1 or 2 laps in them. But that time around for Evan Giltaire, he's done a 149.6 over Rashid Al Daheri on a 149.7. Freddie Slater on a 149.8. And Cascado on a 149.862 as well. Brenda Badua rounds out your top 5, but on pole in Q1 here is Evan Giltaire, 149.6.
Flag is out now for the end of the first session. Cascado P4, that's the best he can get from it at this moment in time. Really good to see, though. Some very exciting performances. Giltaire does not improve on a 149.62, but then he doesn't have to, because Rashid Al Daheri doesn't improve either, and nor will Freddie Slater. So excellent performances then from the first end of the field, and on his debut in the Middle East, Evan Giltaire gets pole position, 149.621. I don't see anybody beating that looking at the sector times now. And this is his first ever appearance outside of Europe. So excellent to see Evan Giltaire putting in such a great performance. A couple of lap times deleted at the end of the session there. Crucially for Yuru Che, his last lap time was deleted for truck limits at turn 1. So very unfortunate indeed there. That's one of the most common parts of the circuit where things can go astray. And there is the provisional performances. Freddie Slater bangs in the fastest lap right at the end there, 149.551. So his last lap, he does find it. I was there talking about Evan Shilter as the pole position, and Freddie Slater snatches it at the very last second. So 1:49.551 for Freddie Slater. Absolutely incredible, right at the last. My goodness.
My goodness, that just shows exactly why Freddie Slater leads the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine Championship. That just showing. Freddie Slater, 1:49.5 over Evangel Ter. Rashid Al-Daheri Cascado in position 4, Brenda Badua. And then Riviera, Ugochukwu, Taito Kato, Severu Khan, and Ricky Liu. Akshay Bora, Teofil Nair, Enzo Deligny, and Cameron G. Nakamura, Kasrani, Castillo, Barriat, Stack, Darianani, and Jack Beaton rounds out your top 20 cars. Yaroslav Vesler, Giovanni Maschio, Green, and Wayne round out your top 26 cars on this grid. Race number 1 tomorrow when we go racing.
The end there for Freddie Slater. Absolutely astonishing that it happened right at the last end. Absolutely fantastic. So, a good opportunity then for the drivers to figure out what was good about the session, what needed improvements, and then to make the adjustments. There is the newest recruit to the Red Bull Academy, Ernesto Rivera, the Mexican, raced in Spanish F4 last year. Many podiums, including a race win. So definitely a driver of great notes. Now, I'm just going to answer a couple of the questions that came in during the first qualifying session, where we've got a couple of minutes of gap. Faded Exile on YouTube says, how much power do these cars have? What's the top speed? He says they look painfully slow. Well, let's not forget that these are not Formula One cars, which most people will, of course, be used to seeing at full chat around the Yasmarina circuit. This is the Auto Technica built out for a Romeo 1750 TBI engine, which is a 4-cylinder turbocharged, producing 270 brake horsepower on the Tata's 3 chassis. So it does get you to a fair amount of whack. It will do 6,000 RPM, this engine, but with those statistics, you're looking at a top speed of about, I would have estimated probably about 180 is about where you can really push it if you're very strong indeed. Ask a driver, ask an engineer, they probably find a little bit more accurate than my particular stats, but certainly 270 brake horsepower is what these cars will generate. So the contenders doing a fascinating job. So everybody already starting to put in some amazing compliments towards Freddie Slater for leading that pole position to the very last possible second in the session. Excellent work. And now the mechanics get to do their job. And this is quite an important part of the split between the two sessions. It's more than just bolting on that fresh set of boots. They've got a lot more to do. They'll take a lot of advice from the driver. The feedback will be very crucial. They'll try and figure out, can they make any adjustments to the geometry of the suspension? Can they make any adjustments to the angle of the wing? Whatever they can do to try and find that little bit of extra pace to get them an even better performance on the starting grid for the race later on. It'll be tomorrow actually now, of course, because qualifying 1 sets the grid for Q1 for race 1, and Q2 sets the grid for race 3. With Q2 being decided, race 2's grid, I should say, being decided by a reverse grid based on the results of race 1. Finley Green and his engineer working very hard there to make sure that everything will work in good positivity. Interesting to hear some of the comments coming through. Jack Monaghan pointing out, I wonder if Tippett Tarpon left Slater some of his frosties from last year. Tippett Tarpon doesn't leave anything behind for any driver to gain an advantage. But I see exactly what you're saying there. Tuka the Tiger, as of course he's known. He'll be in the Formula 3 grid this year. He did send a nice message to the drivers at Race GP this year, and even reminded them that they can get the job done as well. So the timer has begun for the second session. The teams are still trying to get their cars set up, and certainly the first minute or so of the session is all about getting the tyres on and making sure that the setup is all good and ready for the second session. A lot of lessons will have been learnt in this first session. And that's the thing, you've only got 15 minutes to get out there and put a decent lap time together, so it's not easy to join everything up and make sure it works. There is the first 1,000 contender from last year, Aaron Cameron, the Australian, in that beautiful carbon helmet it is. He looks more like a fighter pilot than he does a racing driver, but certainly looking very strong, and his pace has been flirting with top 10 all the way through testing on Thursday and Friday, and indeed this morning as well. So if you can connect the dots and put a decent lap together, the Aussie is going to be right up at the sharp end. So the first driver out on the circuit is, for the record, I do believe the origin of Wang Wei. And we also have one of the pinnacles heading out onto the circuit. I know that is Wang Wei, my apologies. But the two origin cars look very different to each other. I should point that out. This is the origin team, which used to be known as R&B, and had a bit of a reputation of being the bookend at the back of the field, but not necessarily this year, especially with Yuru Che, who is looking very fast. In fact, yesterday, the practice session, as I mentioned earlier on, the second practice session at night, he was the fastest driver. So they'll definitely be framing that particular race result, or practice result, I should say, because that's the first time that the former R&B team, now known as Origin Motorsport, would have come in. And they'll be feeling a bit like the Mighty Ducks coming in, going, you know, R&B, that was ancient history. But after yesterday, Origin Motorsport are undefeated, certainly for the moment at least. Well, Lewis seems to be a bit of a gambling man. He wants to know odds on Slater doing the Antonelli and winning 2 Formula Regional titles in his rookie season. But tell you what, in terms of preparation, he's certainly not a bad bet. Looking at the opposition, he just pulled out of the woods there. A fantastic opportunity. It's all going to be about trying to bank as many points as possible in the early part of the season for Freddie Slater. It's what he's really good at, starting as he means to go on. Last year in F4 was about consistency. But I spoke to him about this yesterday, and he actually feels more at home in the Formula Regional than he does in the F4, which is a frightening prospect for anybody who is going to try and go up against him. He was absolutely mighty in F4 last year, particularly in the Italian Championship. He kind of stole the UAE crowd at the very last meeting of the season last year, but I tell you what, if he is more at home in the Formula Regional than he was in the F4, everybody else in the Formula Regional in any competition around the world should be practically terrified. So now the contenders getting themselves warmed up again. Tyres and brakes getting warmed up to temperatures. There is Washer Way, dialing himself in, ready for another strong run. Senior member of the field, of course, plenty of experience, but nowadays more keen to continue the progress of this team, which has a lot of GT reputation. It's one of the top level teams in Asian GT racing. But this is a good opportunity for the likes of Wang Wei to stretch his legs as a single-seater driver. He doesn't get many opportunities to do it, so why not? If you've got the opportunity to go racing and you know what you're doing, give it a go. You may not be at the front, but you'll still enjoy racing. That's the whole point. Let's see how the contenders gear up for this second session. There's going to be a few drivers you'll want to keep an eye on in this second session to see if they've made any major changes to the setup, particularly the Frenchman Enzo de Ligny. I'll be interested to see what Hugo Chukwu can come up with in this second session as well. The man who practically dominated the Macau Grand Prix with one of the most exemplary drives around the streets of Macau I have ever seen in the 30 years of watching the race. So, fantastic performance. Just because he's a little bit rusty out of the blocks in this one, don't think for a moment that it's not going to be a title attack from Yuka Chukwu. The American driver in the McLaren fold, very much a worthy racer. And you don't walk away dominant from Macau without being an absolute ace in the pack. So he's definitely one to watch out for this year. So down to the hairpin then comes Wang Wei. 26 drivers in the field in Formula Regional Middle East this particular round of the championship. We know that there's going to be a little bit of a shuffle of the deck here and there. A couple of drivers have announced that they'll be racing in the championship, albeit a little later into the season rather than fresh out of the blocks. So you'll get to see a couple of different changes of driver through the season. We already know that Razor Swerve, the British driver in Mumbai Falcons, is going to be replaced at rounds 3 and 4 by the French driver Dorian Bang, who is of course part of the Iron Dames and part of the Mercedes F1 Junior Academy as well. Animated conversation between Axel and PHM, fortunately of a positive nature by the look of it. That's one of the other things I do like about this championship, the banter. As soon as we went into the pits for the first time yesterday morning, it was great to shake hands with not just all the drivers that I've known over the years, but the mechanics as well. These guys, it's a little bit of a mini holiday for them because the whole season is condensed into a space of 2 months. They basically move their lives out here for the space of about 5-6 weeks. They do all the testing here. They live together. They obviously go jogging together, they eat together. It's a real festival atmosphere for these 5-6 weeks when everything is condensed into a short space of time. So you do build great friendships, you do build good bonds, because it's almost like race camp, if you like. Brandon Badua goes top spot with the first flying lap, 1:59.854 to get things very much underway. Of course, we're a long way from pace, as we mentioned, a 1:49.7 in practice, and let's not even consider Freddie Slater's lap from earlier on to get him into pole position, so we've still got a lot of time to find. But it will be interesting to see who gets the most of it from this second session and who's made the most improvements. There's Finley Green, notable by the green halo and winglets. That's how they managed to identify cars from a distance. From the Pinnacle team alone, they have their own markers and indicators. Jessica Schnedo's markers are red. Obviously, Giovanni Maschio's are yellow. Finley Green's are green. And the fourth man in the team, Ernesto Rivera, doesn't need them because he's the only driver in the field that comes under the Red Bull colours. So he's fairly easy to spot. Giovanni Maschio bangs in at 1:58.9, so that's the first major push for him to try and get the tyres up to temperature. Still going to be a couple of minutes really before we see a full-blown lap from everybody. Option Wade is at 1:57.2, so we've still got a lot of time to find, but it will be fascinating to see how it works out. So let's see how it all continues on. Out of the final hairpin on the run to the back straight, and there's just one chicane before they get themselves back to the checkered flag again. Option Wade, top spot. Take a picture, Orangine. You're never going to see that again, or at least not by the end of the session, you won't. Finley Green, second position now in front of Evan Schilter, who's found a 1:58.8 to warm the tyres up. Maschio, Lee, Karashkedo, Badua and Gokani. This is the lap, though, that we're really going to see some proper times as drivers cross the line, because they'll start the big flying lap. They get a couple of minutes to warm it all up. Don't forget that these are box fresh tyres, so they need a couple of laps to scrub them in, get them up to temperature, and then move them on. And for those who think that, well, if they're quick in Europe, they're going to be quick in Middle East, guaranteed, because it's the same car. It is the same car, but it's not the same tyres. In Europe, they race with Pirellis. Here, they race with GTs, and they're very different tyres altogether. It's almost a completely different racing car if you've got a different type of tyre from a different manufacturer. So just because you're going to be quick in one doesn't mean you're going to be quick in another. And a lot of drivers, as we see a big sideways slapper from one of the Mumbai Falcons there, I think that might have been Reza Sawerden. But it's a very different style of driving on these GT tyres compared to the Pirelli tyres in Europe. So it almost takes on the behaviour of a very different racing car. The correlation between one and the other is not quite as straightforward as you might think. And as a result, quite a few drivers use this as training. But instead of going out testing on a circuit where they're just banging in laps, a lot of them want to keep their racecraft up, so they'll race here. And you've seen in the past that some drivers have a difficult time here and then go to Europe and really stomp it. Well, don't forget, a few years ago, Oliver Behrman did a half campaign in Formula Regional Middle East, as it was then in Formula Regional Asia, and really struggled. He was really off the pace. But it all worked for him because he was doing studying, he was working on his data, he was trying to understand the measure of the car, the measure of the tyres, and the second he got into the F3 car, he was invincible. So you do get the data, not necessarily the time. Freddie Slater banks it in top spot, 1:48.972. So Schilter's second, you can shoot him back up to third. There you go. He is finding the pace again after all. They obviously needed to make a slight setup adjustment. But as I keep trying to remind you all, just because you're going to be good in one Formula Regional in one part of the world doesn't mean you'll be dominant in this one. Because these GT tyres are a very different code of tyre compared to regional European to that of the Pirellis in Europe. And it's not easy to get these tyres right. But if you can get both Middle East and regional European championships won, then that proves just how good a driver you really are. So let's see how it continues on for this man, the Frenchman Evan Schilter, definitely a contender for the title. Well, that is Wong Wei. I do apologise. I thought that looked to me like an ART Grand Prix car, but Wong Wei getting plenty of television time in qualifying. You may as well lap it up because I have a feeling you won't get quite as much in the race itself. There is the technical team down there at Race GP. They're obviously still reeling off the title success last year with Tukka the Tiger. Tarpanet, part of the Ferrari Academy, and now, of course, in FIA Formula 3 this year. Expect a rookie sensational season from the Finn. But the team he has left is still going to be their men up the front. Enzo Deligny, Jin Nakamura, Akshay Bora, and Yuga Chukwu. 4 drivers who are all capable of winning races in this championship. All of them have the talent. It's whether they can set the car up and get it all right on the night. And it will be the night this evening, because, of course, we're of both Formula 4 and Formula Regional Middle East Championships under the floodlight. Figure again, 148.854. Purple sector 1, purple sector 2, pretty good in sector 3, so that'll get the job done for the moment. Up to third now in front of Cadestado. But Slater's lap there, 148.8, that's a 4. The other positions there is the 19. Here, 148.8 in front of Evan Shields here, just in Cadestado. And Reginol we're under the gaze of another professional commentator. George Morgan's popped into the stream. He's clearly having a very rare weekend away from the microphone, getting himself ready. I know he's been hard at work doing a lot of pre-season prep for his European single-seater and touring car and GT campaigns. Good to see you in the stream, George. The draw of motor racing, it's too tempting for any of us. Slater, Gilter, 1 minute to go. Cadestado third from Rivera. Aldeheri back up into the top 5. Ahead of Yuga Chukwu. See, Aldeheri's got the home advantage. He knows this circuit very well. He knows these GT tyres very well. Yuga Chukwu still, obviously, having had 1 year of experience in the car, but it's not naturally perfect for him at the moment. Taylor now 7th, Jin Nakamura in 8th position with his rival Taito Kato 9th. So the 2 Japanese drivers for the Toyota and Honda junior programs, respectfully, definitely very close together. So it'll be really exciting to see how it all continues on. Freddie Slater's time is just not getting nudged at, is it? 148.85 for Freddie Slater at the moment in front of Evan Shields here. 149.3, Cadestado 149.4. And that time is standing, so Slater's lap, not only sensational but clearly legal, otherwise it would have been docked for track limits. So to be nearly half a second quicker than the rest of the field, that is unbelievably telling, isn't it? It tells you everything you need to know about how fast it's going to be when we get into the race itself. If he's going to have that sort of pace going into the race, none of the rest of the drivers in Formula Regional Middle East will see which way he went. Down the back straight, the checkered flag will be the first thing the drivers see. Finley Green is the first one to take it. Looks like Ali Kulkarni and Jaden Pariat are done for this session. Harring's decided to park it before the end of the lap. There's a couple of personal bests coming. Rivera could make it to 2nd or 3rd. Gilter doesn't improve. Can Rivera, the Red Bull Junior, can he get ahead of Jesse Cadestado? Slater crosses the line, still 0.46 of a second ahead of everybody else. It's absolute dominance from Freddie Slater in the end in qualifying. But who's going to be 3rd? Will it be Cadestado, Rivera or Aldeheri? Can any of them beat Gilter? Yuga Chukwu does not improve on 6th. Nal is 7th. Bora is 8th. We're waiting to see the battle of the Japanese pair, Toyota versus Honda. Academy drivers, of course, Jin Nakamura and Taito Kato, and Brandon Badua splits them as he crosses the line. So Badua goes 10th, Kaito immediately beats him, but doesn't beat Nakamura. So that's that sorted. Rivera 3rd in front of Cadestado. Aldeheri does not improve. Razor Swerthen does, goes 7th, just in behind Yuga Chukwu. And then Teofil Nal, Akshay Bora goes 9th with his final flying lap. What about Jin Nakamura? He's about to cross the line. What can Nakamura do? Oh, he's shot up to 9th position again, ahead of Akshay Bora. As Jesse Cadestado is on his final flying lap, but I think he's down on both Sector 1 and Sector 2. So I don't really see Jesse Cadestado making a massive improvement. So it's Freddie Slater, 2 out of 2. Domination in qualifying. Absolutely sensational. So it's very clear then that over the last year, Freddie Slater has had a very simple programme. Imitation of what he did last year. Innovation, stepping into the Formula Regional, and now domination. Both of the qualifying sessions are his to claim. Evan Gilter 2nd, and Esther Rivera 3rd from Cadestado. Aldeheri ahead of Yuga Chukwu, Swerthen, Teofil Nal, Jin Nakamura, Akshay Bora, Taito Kato, and Brando Badua. And it's Aaron Cameron in front of Kanato Lee from Lulu G, and Enzo Deligny, Giovanni Mascio ahead of Lorenzo Castillo. number of the many rookies in the field. Everett Stack, Jack Beaton doing 20th. Very tough for him when he's feeling so unwell. Jaden Harriat, Aditi Bukani, Kai Dalianani in 23rd in front of Yadastafes Alaho. And then it is Finley Green ahead of Wong Chun-wei. So 2.8 seconds covering the entirety of the field then, but Freddie Slater is the dominant force in the first weekend of qualifying. Pole position for races 1 and 3. It'll be almost impossible to see him in pole position for race 2 unless he has an absolute stinker, but that will not be what he needs. He needs to stay away from the reverse grid pole in race 2 and just consolidate these first 2 race qualifying sessions into strong performances. But 0.4 of a second clear, nearly half a second clear of the rest of the field, is a statement of intent. If you want to take this off me, you're really going to want to fight for it.
Indeed, he will, as the World Feed takes through some highlights, and Freddie Slater just showing exactly why he races in the Italian F4 Championship and has already won it multiple times. He's now on that charge to win the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. He's on that charge, and he has been for quite a while. Indeed. Evan Julter topped quali 1. Sorry, Freddie Slater topped quali 1 and quali 2, so he'll be starting on pole in race 1 and race 3. Should be quite interesting indeed. George Morgan says Slater and Julter look strong. Indeed, they do. This should be quite good indeed. But the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship will be returning tomorrow morning from 10:30 over there in Abu Dhabi. It will be night time, which will make it just that little bit more interesting. That's it for qualifying, though, for the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship by Alpine. Not by Alpine. That's it for the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship. We're going to leave you up to the World Feed. Until then, it's goodbye.
He is very much the first man to admit that qualifying is one thing, racing is completely different. So he won't be resting on the laurels. He will be working, trying to look at the data, figure out where he can be even stronger going into the races. But if anybody wants to stop Freddie Slater, they're going to have to find something pretty special ahead of race 1. So we are going to take a pause in proceedings then. Qualifying is completed here for the weekend in both the F4 Middle East Championship and the Formula Regional Middle East Championship as well in the first round of 5 in 2025. We've got some great races to come, 6 in total, 3 in F4, 3 in Formula Regional, 2 tonight, 4 tomorrow, and there's going to be plenty of action to kick off the international single-seater season. From Jake Sampson in the commentary box, thanks for watching. We'll be back for race 1 of both F4 and Formula Regional. Tonight will be the night. And don't worry, folks, Saturday night is very much all right for fighting.
There is the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship here today. But that is the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship done. For qualifying, of course, race number 2 will be back tomorrow. Race 1, round number 1. I'll run you through the rest of the year. So, Yas Marina, of course, continuing on round number 2. And then, of course, in round number 3, we head to the Dubai Autodrome for round 3. Then, of course, we continue on in round number 4 when we return back to the Yas Marina circuit. Then Lusail in round number 5. That, of course, in 2 months' time. So, the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship will round out the racing activity, but there's still plenty more racing activity with the Victorian State Championships as well. But that is it for the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship. We'll be back tomorrow from 10:30 for race number 1. Till then, it's goodbye.